I am Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for another BDSM United podcast. Right now, we're in the middle of a series where we're looking at this old guard history. Now, they didn't call themselves old guard back in the BDSM past, but that's what we call them. That's a name we've given to that era. The people who first started doing this, where they combined the bondage and discipline with the sadism and masochism, that military hierarchy was combined with kinky play, and really came up with the ideas of power exchange relationships, and that really was a game changer because S&M has been around for a long time, but BDSM comes from this old guard era. And one of the books in our library is called the Leatherman's Protocol Handbook by Master John Wheel. And it's a controversial work, to say the least. Many of his peers claim that the book is askew in some areas, and some even claim that some of the things that he states as facts are actually a fabrication. And we have this book in our library, and we simply don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's some good stuff in this book. And so, while it is controversial and while it is sometimes difficult to uh, separate fact from fabrication, we just adding it to what we already know and what we got from other sources and other places and other people, and to piece together the puzzle of what we consider old guard history. Quoting Master John in this book, I luckily survived the HIV epidemic. He says, I've come to be the last living member of our club, and the stories that I will talk about, as well as the protocol, etiquette, and rituals, are my contribution to preserving those early years and times. Master John goes on to say, know that if you choose to use it, you honor me. And if you choose to not honor me, at least you know about it. And that makes me proud to do what we are about to do together. The collective absence of so many leather forebearers is, I think, one of the main reasons why the social changes of the last decade seem to have produced so much more of a chasm than did previous ones. These people not only built and refined our institutions, but they also met and talked and played with innumerable others, all while transmitting community values to newcomers. Their loss has damaged the social fabric of the leather community and has created huge gaps in the transmission of leather culture and history. Some of this culture and history has been irretrievably lost forever, and our leather society today has had to reinvent important pieces of itself as a result. Master John says, I believe this is the principal reason why old guard and new guard or next gen have such differences. Although much has been lost, as gay leather and BDSM has evolved, new developments have brought positive changes as well as new problems. Master John says he's not proposing that we could or should go back to the 1950s. He says, I also believe we should neither romanticize the past nor fail to value it. Today, there are many ways to acquire leather attitudes and leather knowledge, including open classes, events, books, the internet, and structured programs, as well as more valuable, true traditional apprentice relationships. Many people are realizing we need to value what was good, and they're seeking out these stories, these traditions, and ceremonies. They're trying to regain the values, adding once more the strictness, the structure, and the stability that once was so vital and critical to our way of life. They realize the need and are today trying to reinstate those values and weed out the bad ones, but understand why they were there, as well as why they had to change them, yet not forget them. I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for this short BDSM United podcast today. Uh, just as we're continuing to unfold the Leatherman's Protocol Handbook by Master John Wheel, and we're just piecing together old guard history. I think one of the important things that he's noting in this particular podcast is that so much was lost due to the HIV pandemic and that crisis in the 1980s. We lost a lot of our movers and shakers. We lost a lot of those vital pieces of the puzzle that would definitely make our leather community and our BDSM community great today. We lost a lot of really good people to that to HIV and AIDS, and we were at a loss, but we've rebounded and we've had to recreate and reinvent some pieces of this puzzle. Uh, and we have a really good system today. BDSM. I've done previous podcasts about the acronym of BDSM and what is involved in bondage and discipline and sadism and masochism, and really the unique thing that they put together, combining that military hierarchy and with S&M kinky play and kind of putting it all together and creating these really unique power exchange relationships. And they came up with they did an awesome thing for us. So, we really want to uh, see their contribution as valuable. And, but we definitely want to mourn the loss uh, of those great men and great women of our past that we lost during that tragic time, that tragic season. Definitely want to make sure that we're uh, being risk aware in our current paradigm, our current uh, day and age that we live in. We want to um, learn from those past mistakes of just of not being prepared and of transmitting infections and things uh, when when and knowing when and when not to use barriers and when not to use things like prep. And we just have a lot of resources today that can help prevent the spread of HIV and prevent the loss uh, of uh, of things like um, or prevent the loss of people. We just recently went through our own COVID pandemic, this worldwide pandemic. We're kind of on the other side of it, even though a lot of people's lives are still affected. But prior to the pandemic, we personally here at this podcast, we were running munches, and we learned from that time in our past. We knew our history, and we knew how tragic the loss of life can be. And so we ended our munches. We went into quarantine. We wore masks. We used as much Lysol as we could get our hands on, and hand sanitizers, and we did everything we could do to prevent the spread of our pandemic, because we just realized how valuable life is and how much just the loss of life really takes a toll on our community. I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for this BDSM United podcast. And you can find all of our resources at www.bdsmunited.com. It was a joy bringing this to you today, and I'll talk with you again soon.